Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Clayton Furidi here with another Dragoncurve video. This time, I wanted to talk about what is definitely my personal most anticipated game of the year, Resident Evil Village, and why I think this is going to be an important title for the series for a number of different reasons. First off, for those of you who may be unaware, I'm actually a pretty big fan of this franchise. I own multiple copies of damn near every game, and while I'm not exactly something of an expert when it comes to the series lore or really know much outside of what I've personally experienced through novels and games, I would definitely say that I'm a big fan of Resident Evil. Big shocker, I know. The Jurassic Park guy likes another franchise with crazy bioengineering corporations that unleash monsters everywhere. Who would have thunk it? Anyways, when it comes to Resident Evil, I think everyone is pretty much aware by now of the fact that the series has gone through several different incarnations through its now 25-year lifespan. Originally, what we had were simple tank controls traversing pre-rendered backgrounds that eventually gave way to a revolutionary over-the-shoulder system employed by RE4, and then, years later, we'd see a first-person point of view with RE7. Along the way of all of these technical changes, Resident Evil would also explore different forms of gameplay and enemy types as well. Although most people would associate the brand with a zombie outbreak in Raccoon City, the truth is that these events only lasted up until 1998, and everything in the timeline since then has been pretty much radically different. From prehistoric plagues spreading over unsuspecting villagers to a secret molding enemy created by a rival company. Bottom line, Resident Evil has been a lot of different things, and Resident Evil Village is no exception. With the franchise venturing into a weird European area with castle-like settings and monsters ripped straight out of fairy tales, I think RE8 has a lot of potential to not only bring a brand new sense of horror to the brand, but also an opportunity to piss a lot of people off as well. Whenever Resident Evil goes for something big and bold in a new direction, or really any franchise for that matter, we usually see something of a recoil from those who just want to keep their IPs in the old ways. Personally, I'm someone who is more on the fence in these kind of situations. If they're able to prove that it's a change for the better, then I'm happy, but if they don't, well then it just winds up being a big disappointment, and I think a lot of people probably share my similar sentiments. At this given point in time, I think the very best Resident Evil games aren't actually identical to what you'd find on a big video game website's ranking list. And that's because, in my opinion, the best games of the series are Resident Evil, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 7, and then the remakes of RE1 and RE2 respectively. I guess you could say automatically that I'm someone that prefers the Raccoon City aesthetic to everything else, and while that would be something of a half-truth, I really just think that these are the 5 games that executed everything to the maximum strengths of their abilities in order to make damn good, solid titles. Resident Evil 4 is definitely one of the most revolutionary games of all time, and it would debatably be considered one of the higher quality games when put up against some of these other games that I've got on the list, especially the original version of RE1, but for their respective times and my own subjective opinion, this is just where I think things get settled. Now, if you're a fan, you'll notice that the outlier I've listed here is obviously RE7, which coincidentally happens to be Resident Evil Village's prequel. Well, there's a reason I think so highly of that title. When it comes down to giving players a legitimate puzzle-solving, survival horror experience, I really think the first-person point of view and setting of an old southern mansion made RE7 one of the standout games of the franchise. It was also highly original in how it approached gameplay in my opinion, and I'd even compare it to the original Resident Evil on PlayStation in that aspect as well. Sure, it's not perfect, I don't think it's the greatest game ever made, but personally, I thought it was the ultimate beginning of what I hope will be a solid trilogy. Now, when it comes to its little brother in Resident Evil 8, what we see here is a pretty big departure from what Resident Evil 7 set up. We've got a much bigger expansion on an older character and survival horror history with our boy Chris Redfield showing back up in a larger story capacity. We've got a brand new gothic location that is supposedly going to lend itself to some very weird and freaky imagery that will set itself apart from the bayous of RE7. And we've even got some added lore that is tying back into the whole Umbrella legacy that we haven't really gotten expanded upon in a very long time. In a lot of ways, Resident Evil Village on a story level is reminding me a lot of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, albeit in my opinion Code Veronica is actually more like that JP movie than what I think Village will end up being. By the way, I've seen that film like nearly 20 times now, and each time I do, I fucking love it even more. I know that the ideas to incorporate these werewolves, witches, and vampiric beasts will more than likely just boil down to some sort of genetic experimentation gone wrong, and I'm totally cool with that, but I do also hope that this story doesn't go off the rails and turn into something that a lot of people aren't going to be too happy with. I have no doubt in my mind that RE8 is also going to lend a lot of its assets to the already announced remake for RE4 as well, so I'm also kind of cautious into wondering if this is nothing more than a stepping stone for Capcom to get to that juggernaut of a seller. I still don't know if RE4 even needs a remake, but in the end, I think a lot of this worrying is kind of missing a few important key details here. Resident Evil Village is at the end of the day the sequel to Resident Evil 7, and I really fucking love Resident Evil 7. This game looks darker, it looks weirder, it looks like it's delving deeper into the Umbrella lore, and even showing us what Chris Redfield is doing screwing around Europe after seemingly killing Ethan's wife Mia. I think if the game just simply sticks to what made RE7 great while also expanding upon that old school RE feel, it's going to be a badass title for me whether or not the game's journalists love it or not. So in my opinion, Village actually has an opportunity to be a very interesting chapter in the Resident Evil saga that offers up something wildly different while also hugely satisfying when it comes to the brand. Whether or not it achieves this goal is yet to be seen, but from what I've seen and heard about the game, it does look super cool. Anyways guys, those are all just my own personal thoughts and opinions on the subject matter. Resident Evil Village is going to be coming out in April of this year, so just a few months away. Hopefully I'll have a PS5 by then, and if I do, I'll probably be streaming it sometime down the line. If you want my opinions on the other games, I actually think RE5 is good, it's just totally not Resident Evil. RE6 is, well, jack of all trades, master of none. Let's just leave it at that. All the other ones I think are pretty good. Never played any of the Operation Raccoon City shit, so I can't really have an opinion. But hey, whatever your opinions and thoughts on Resident Evil Village happen to be, I'd love to hear them in the comments down below.